Hi everyone, it's Maria from Jadot La Papier. It's a nice cool summer morning, so I thought in between projects, which I have 3 on my desk currently, I thought I'd show you my art journal, how I make it, and then how I use it. So right now it's spread out. It's actually a traditional bound book, and I have a lot of loose art going in and out of it. So you'll probably recognize some of the pieces from some past projects and or some past artwork stickers that I've made. So hopefully you'll find a little inspiration and also a little insight as to why I make my books the way that I do. And I do call them books just because of my preferred method of traditional bookbinding. In this case, French link with a Coptic stitch, so typically 6 holes, use of mull or muslin, and or in this case some paper. Let's see, mulberry paper, just to keep the binding nice and stiff and supportive. So this is a 1916 Louvre diary. Additionally, big books. I struggle a little more with the smaller books just because of the way I make art. But this one happened to be 8 by 11 probably. Yeah, 8 by 10 and a half originally. And with all of my artwork, as you see, I like the big format. Big Strathmore drawing paper. Since I couldn't find my muslin in my storage, I used some mulberry paper as mull. If you ever look at a deconstructed book or a book that's torn apart, in the old days they used just simply a page from the book or newspaper to paste right over the stitching. And that just gives it a little more strength, or glue, literally, quite literally glue, to keep the pages together. So you'll notice this thing isn't flipping flopping, considering how tall it is and wide it is. Even if I'm handling it with one hand, it's not flipping and flopping anywhere. It has a nice solid spine. I like to sew together individual leaves or folded papers together instead of what a lot of bookbinders and or bookmakers do. They'll stack several pages together and create a signature and then stitch them and bind them that way, which is great for reading books, but for me and making art, we'll go right in just so you can see what I'm talking about. So this one is a combination of past work, inspiration from Pinterest. So on the inside, you'll see the architecture, digital image on the interior of this cover. I have a free-floating pocket, which has lots of little bits and pieces of either painting and or sketches that I've done for past projects. And then I did put a pocket in front here with some of my favorite artist images. This one just happens to be from Jeanne Oliver's Gathered course, and I just love not only her imagery but her mythology behind gathering things that she already had made, or why she makes certain things and how she makes certain things. Either torn up or no, I want to use up. So this came from the poetry project, the beachcomber project, some waxed, let's see, I did some dry soft pastel on mulberry paper and then waxed it. Some art pages, art sketches from my sister-in-law. You might have seen this in the last book that I just made. This is the original Sumi ink on ink and pen paper. So this Canson paper right here. So a lot of my stickers I actually do create on this paper just because it's nice and smooth, and I was using a lot of not only Sumi ink but also acrylic paints. And now you'll see how even between 2 pages, even though there is a slight gutter, it's perfectly flat. So I'll show you from the side here. So when I'm creating art, these 2 pages have no gap between them, or at least no true gap between them. Painting images from 2 summers ago, actually, that was my eco dye period where I was at a friend's house and I was just practicing with different foods. You know, the different weights. I tend to like lighter water paper, meaning it's not as heavy or thick, and just want to practice some of the different colors and how they come across depending on the weight of the paper. You probably saw my Instagram and or YouTube short where I show you how I individually sew one leaf at a time. Pen and ink sketches. These became stickers. So I do these sticker packs. I think I have some of these images in there. So I just love to doodle with pen and ink and then acrylic paint or acrylic pens. So if you ever see these images on Instagram, whether it's my mom's makeup bag, a lipstick color that I like, here's this particular image. So I actually will do sample sizes of these stickers just to check the quality. I do have these on in my coffee shop, or Ko-fi, and it's linked below, but they're waterproof and thick vinyl stickers. 3 inches in most cases, because I like my big bold stickers, especially if you use them on your stationery. I'm gonna have to figure out if I'm willing to sell these on TikTok. It's quite a bit of high energy over there. This became a sticker of a nice thick, I think this is a different brand, but I did like how it came out. So these are original. These are the acrylic pens that I like to use. I scan them and then just clean them up a little bit. This one I wanted to make into stationery, just on my sketch process. Practicing faces. These became stickers as well. So this image here was scanned and then created little 2.5 inch stickers of the makeup. I just love the texture of acrylic pens. And then when I do hinge 2 papers together, you'll see here I actually use some of my old artwork that maybe I just didn't like. One, I like the thickness of the paper to be able to hinge 2 pieces together. And then when it forms the gutter, this one is gutterless because there's no hole in between the pages, but you'll see the stitches right through there. So I still have a lot of room to practice, and that's why I love combining old work with empty pages, or not so empty anymore. So here's that original image, and then there's that sticker. Practicing faces, I follow Krista Irene on YouTube, and I think she has a Facebook page. She has some face tutorials. I like her faces, and it aligns with how I make mine, which is very, it's definitely not real. I can't say that I'll ever be a portrait artist, that's for sure. My mom's makeup bag, how it became a sticker. So, see, it's still flat. So by flat, I mean the pages aren't popping up like a lot of our junk journals that are either have really thick signatures. But when I create and or go back and review things, I just need a flat surface. I did save a page from that poetry book, that Canadian speaker, where the lady owner from 120 years ago had notes on these different poems that she had selected. And then my favorite artist, Chagall, from that last artist travel notebook that I just made, coffee pages. So still, even though there's a gutter, it's nearly seamless. For image transfers on coffee doesn't work as well on coffee stained pages. My palettes, my paint palettes, my acrylic paint palettes that I like to use and cut up, you know, if I see an image or some sort of design on the back that I like, I'll stick that in a project. And then you'll notice that I have a few pages bound in here from my favorites that I find on Pinterest. I like how the blues and teals and greens play together, and how layered and just a little messy these art pages are. So I went back and tried to recreate some of these colors. Didn't quite get to the teal, but I definitely got to the sea blues. So that's where I'm practicing my, my paint mixing. So see how I'm binding in also tracing paper and or vellum paper. So it doesn't matter, as long as I can hinge them together with paper or fabric, I can sew almost anything together and make it a book. Practice for my sister-in-law's art that she wanted from me. I love Instagram, these aerial shots. You'll see a couple art pages. These are beach or river shorelines and or waves from aerial views, and you'll see some birds on top. And then I'll follow certain users based. And then this one is the Canson pen and ink paper on one side with Sumi ink. And the Sumi ink did pretty well. But then on the back, it's mixed media. So it's acrylic with layered mulberry paper with wax. And then I created a scene from Tillamook, Oregon, the beach near Cannon Beach. And just like these aerial shots here, you know, I can create these abstract scenes, beach scenes, because I still have one more beach, not necessarily beachcombers, but beach lovers project. And this is acrylic with soft pastel and oil pastel, a little bit of fabric, more soft pastel and oil pastel. And there's the lighthouse out by Tillamook on a rock. And this is a shoreline, and I'm still practicing how to create depth. But in some cases, I don't necessarily want to create depth, but instead just texture. So this is actually 2 sandbars being cut through because the Columbia River comes out into the Pacific Ocean. So the Columbia River goes between Washington and Oregon State. And so you'll find sandbars constantly changing, so the waves might actually go to 2 different sides. That 3-page layout, that's why I've been loving my 4-page layouts for the little tiny art journals that I've been making. This side actually happens to be mixed media paper now that I'm feeling the weight and texture of it. So mixed media, pen and ink on one side, and still together they can come together with a great composition and or storyline. And then this one is just the Strathmore drawing paper that I have here underneath. So this one happened to be 80-pound Strathmore drawing paper, and still it takes mixed media, and this is mulberry paper. A lot of times I'll have to go back and feel to remember what I used. That was a little bit of white chalk and white gel ink pen. And then an image from Instagram, or not Instagram, Pinterest, of a lone sailor, fisherman out at sea. On the back of this mixed media page here, see, it's still flat in between, even though there is a gutter. And if I ever have to go back, I can just go through and give it a little bit of tape and or internal hinge work. This one was the drywall tape. So this is mixed media. It has both, it has acrylic, it has chalk. Oh, look, see, chalk. So I haven't finished spraying the adhesive over it. More acrylic paint. I love that blue, and actually this blue paint strip here is what I use to hinge 2 individual pages together. So nice and nearly gutterless, or at least seamless is the word that I'll use. More Pinterest art that I love, but then I'll go ahead, and this is actually photo paper. So a lot of times what I'll do is use the thinner, lighter photo paper in my journals, just not to create too much thickness, because you'll notice when this was closed, it's not alligator mouth, despite the fact that I have a lot of artwork stuck into it. I don't like to create alligator mouth for my own journals, so I'll create boxes and or these envelopes to keep things in. But creating boxes, this is a custom box from my brother. He wanted it for his toolbox, but I could put ephemera in here. So this is built off of a clamshell design, but instead of leaving it open and putting the second box over this base box, I just glued it together. So I follow Ito Agassi and Das Bookbinding, and I'll link them below, but I'll be making these to house large format Christian Dior ephemera, just so that I don't have to create a giant book for its future owner. She's been waiting patiently for book 3. But you can make yourself ephemera boxes to fit around your books, little envelopes, and then stuff your ephemera that way. I'll paint on photo paper, which is what I was saying earlier. I'll take little bits that may have not made it into an art journal recently, and I'll save myself a piece or two just to try and remember some past projects. These are some Pinterest items, concertina art projects I want to try, and it looks like maybe a mixed media acrylic and chalk or pencil. Nice and flat. I don't have to press or use any weights to keep my pages down or anything. They already are that way. So that's what I usually strive for when making the art journals or junk journals. that people buy. But, you know, people love their ephemera, and I don't necessarily make you a box to go with a journal because these are time-consuming as well. I built this from scratch using individual chipboard pieces and gluing them together to create not only the box, but then to decorate it. Photo images from my last art project for my friend, and then some practice koi, just to remind myself to go back because I loved making that. I can say that I kept myself a piece or two. One of these, I think it looks like I had just tipped it in, so I'll use combination of painter's tape and or, you know, the drywall tape, more images from Pinterest, and images from that last journal. Just full of ideas and concepts that I want to finish. You know, this is for that next beach one or previous beach lovers book that I made with the Swiss Robinson book. You know, I want to add more seashells, but this time I want to use some of the fabrics, eco-dyed fabrics that I purchased to create different seashells or mixed media shells to include in books as well. So every little bit in here is either a work in progress, a past project, or a future project. So because this is an image from Greece that I found on Pinterest, Greece is all white, but in the upper northeast of the US, in New England states, I see a lot of different cottages, beach cottages, that are painted in these bright colors, these teals and blues. So I just took a page. What page was this? Oh, yeah, it's just a vintage vintage French page from 1956, it looks like. And I painted acrylic paint right on the back. I think it worked out beautifully. It didn't even bleed through. And so these are the exterior walls of a beach cottage. This will be in a future, you know, one of the beach books. Well, at least I hope it will be. Sailboats. If not, I'll make myself, or I say that a lot, a sailor or beach lovers book as well. One of the sail images that I love from Pinterest, and my mom loves too, and I need to figure out what kind of fabric I can use. Or do I use, just like that painting here, do I use a little bit of mulberry and wet it a little to create the effect of the sails? You know, maybe different layering techniques, because that could very well be a sail right there in the wind. Istanbul, where I created that mixed media abstract art, past sketches that have become stickers. You know, these are probably my favorite. They were the fastest sketch, but there's something about the color of that acrylic pen that I loved. Those are in there. These are just tipped in. Ghostly sketches of a nun. I started drawing or sketching a face, but somehow the hairline didn't work out, so I just gave her a habit and then just started practicing more. And then I waxed this particular page. This was a regular white piece of paper, and then I waxed it with beeswax. And then more ghostly images. I tried to do Frida, didn't come out. Instead I got Amelia Earhart, I think. But I just tipped these in, and of course I'll use hinges just so that they're still, again, even though they're tipped in, have that seamless gutter right there. And I'm practicing not only collage work, but sketching of Porsche, vintage Porsche from my brother, and it's turning out to be a mixed media project. So whatever I want to continue with, I'll be becoming a mixed media collage, because whenever part of this Porsche, is it a 356 that I'm trying to sketch, doesn't work out, whether the nose was too short, I'll cover it either with gesso, paint, and or layer it with different bits of papers just to enhance or correct the line, image line. So I'm getting a little better. For some reason, the cars aren't my natural thing. So just like everything, it takes a little practice. More cartoon-like khadi paper, pencil and charcoal sketches. You know, so work in progress. This is another one from Pinterest, and I think I wrote, or I kept the artist's name, 4 Peas in a Pod. you know, just to remind myself to go back with ink, dip ink, or sumi ink, and sketch on actual book pages, and black and white is still ultimately my favorite. And then just some collage work, you know, where I don't like some of the marks, or I just have little bits that I need to paste down. And this was a large image of a wave. I don't think it was Nazare, but these surfers going out, one going out a little too late, one's actually able to get down into, actually caught a wave and is able to write it down. This one is still trying to swim up to catch the next part of this wave and just might make it. But this is just mixed media, so it's a lot of acrylic, just painting, practicing my brush work, using a lot of, it feels like oil pastel, some chalk, and soft pastel as well over here. So, you know, depending on how this turns out, I might cut it up. Again, this is just the Strathmore drawing paper. This is a photographer I follow on YouTube, and I want to try to create some of the lines. I think this is some of the acrylics on the mulberry paper that I was practicing to see how it reacts. Lately I've been doing a lot of these weaves, using up all the strips that are coming from the different art pages or projects. And this one happens to be double-sided, a part of that Chagall inspired image that I broke up and put into that last art book just recently, the travel version. So you'll see all these blank sketch pages waiting for my next sketch and or mixed media practice. So ideas, so many ideas in here, so many blank pages yet to fill, whether it's with more sumi ink collages or abstracts that I put in here, just to see how it reacts. And so because this Strathmore paper that I purchased, it's the extra large format so that I can fold it and create pages as large as I want. Let's see, more practice with faces, ghostly faces. I smudge them when I don't like them, and I'll start over and just take my pencil, my Stabilo or my chalk, and go right over the parts that I didn't like. More room for me to practice faces or images. This one I was practicing a face and practicing shadow work, following Renee Mueller's online course on YouTube. And once I started sketching and adding the hair, it reminded me of Endora, which is the mother on Bewitched, Sam's mother. And so I just went ahead and went with it and sketched out her gowns, because, you know, she always had those chiffon green, mint green, and blue dresses with the standing collar that I want to save for myself, you know, because a lot of times I won't. This is the Japanese sakabukuro fabric from the 1950s. It's a sack that they use to strain the fermented sake out of, and they use persimmon for something, and it dyed the actual fabric. So this 50-year-old pocket represents whenever they had a tear in the sack because of the heavy grain nature, and they never waste anything, especially in Japan. Shows the old stitches from the 1950s, their version of a blanket stitch or stitch work. I just added these blanket stitches up top to create my brother a pocket, so that, you know, I just left it loose, but you'll see the hinges from the French link, and then Sagita's fabrics, which I still will be continuing to use in the next upcoming art projects. So that's how I make my art journals and use them, and how I fill them with ideas for future projects or past, whether they be journals or stickers or stationery. I hope you were inspired and also gained a little insight as to why I choose to create journals with such a tedious binding method. There is a method, or a method to my madness, I guess, if you want to say. So thanks for joining me, and I have the large Christian Dior book 3, which will have an extra large clamshell box. I say that because I am telling myself I can do it, not just in small format, but extra large format, plus an art journal that will go with it, so that the lady can have book 3 in her collection. And then I have one more sea-themed, ocean-themed journal that someone expressed interest in. And then also, because it is summer, I do want to make at least one more art journal, you know, with the fold-out style, whether it's 4 panels or like a zigzag style, with flowers for the garden lovers, because I know there's a lot of garden lovers out there that follow me. So those are the 3 projects that are on my plate right now. And I'll try to film some of the work in progress, but as you can see, sometimes once I'm in the zone, I don't even remember to set up the camera. But anyway, I thought this would be kind of fun to share how my brain works and how my ideas come together. Thanks again, and hopefully I'll see you within maybe in the next couple of weeks with another journal. Take care.